Illinois' news, agriculture, and talk station.
WHOW is Central Illinois' ag station, and that includes providing farmers information on how the commodity markets close each day and week. I'm Todd Gleason from Illinois Public Media, University of Illinois Extension, inviting you to hear the daily closing market report weekday afternoons at 5:06, and on Saturdays, tune in for Commodity Week with a review of the week's markets at 8:30 in the morning, all on WHOW AM, FM, and streamed online.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in studio this morning is DeWitt County Board Chair Joe Witte, who follows up the Wednesday night's DeWitt County Board meeting. Good morning, Mr. Witte.
Good morning, Seth.
So why a Wednesday meeting this week?
Yesterday was Juneteenth. It's a federal state holiday, so employees had the day off, and we had to bump it up a day.
Got it. So Wednesday night, we had the meeting, and I think of everything that went down. I think a lot of folks of interest to hear what you thought of the folks from Manel presenting to the county. What'd you hear? What'd you think?
Yeah, they've met with us, last fall, I believe it was, and we kind of gave them a list of things that we wanted them to kind of maintain some communications on. I think the noise study was outstanding at that time. We had some concerns about the curtailment protocol, and I think the last item was the ADLS, and they did follow up on all three items. The noise studies are complete, and we've received all studies, so that item can be checked off the list, and they've they gave us a quick update on that, that they're in compliance with state requirements. They did talk about the ADLS, and I think they are continuing to work through some technology challenges that they've got, both with I think the hardware, and I think even with the software side of things. They have a hope that they can get the last. I think it's the East Tower that is. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was the East Tower is functioning. It's the West Tower that has problems right now. I think they had a transformer that was fried again, and so they've got that replaced. But they're just working through the connectivity issues, and they've actually got the manufacturer, Detect, is the one that owns the system. They're getting them the accesses that they need to be able to log in and maintain and monitor the equipment. So, we're hopeful that that's going to make some progress this summer and maybe be operational later in the fall. But, when you're dealing with new technology and they're working through their troubleshooting, it's tough to promise a date. But it sounds like they're doing the right things to at least try to get the issue escalated and get the right people involved.
I'll tell you what, the ALS thing, that one was farther along than I thought it'd be, to be honest with you.
I think so. I think the frustration is we also just passed their second anniversary, right? So This has been 2 years now, and we still don't have a functioning ADLS system. So, I think that's maybe a little disappointing that it took as long as it did. But again, this is newer technology to them. I think when they were in here last fall, they were dealing with, firewall issues and the software communicating with the towers. And it sounds like maybe they've got some of those issues worked out, but it's still not operational. So, they're making progress. We'll just have to keep on top of that. And like I said, hopefully, I think it sounded like within a month or so, they may have I think a lot of the communication resolved, but then they've got to get in and test each tower. So it might be later this year before we actually see an operational ADLS system. But but they're making progress. It sounds like.
Sound study. Have you looked at what they put together, and what do you think?
Yes, I did. I think my take on this. I don't know if the whole board has had much discussion on it. They did what was asked of them. They did the sound study for 4 seasons of the year. I think our ordinance maybe was a little bit weak in that, we just required that there was a sound study be done. If you meet the sound study requirements in each of those studies, well, they're saying they're compliant. I think the intent behind the sound study was that the noise levels in that area were going to be compliant for 30 years. I think one of the sound studies, they were at the absolute maximum level in one of the sound band. It's a very complicated ordinance or statute that they have to meet. But I just felt like our ordinance, they did what was requested of them. But
nothing new.
I've got concerns about, over the course of 30 years, are they going to be able to truly comply with the state requirements? I have my doubts, but unfortunately, that's just an issue with our ordinance requirement at the time. So
yeah, sure. Gotcha. When it comes to curtailment, that was probably the biggest talking point on Wednesday. Speak to me about what we heard about curtailment and your reaction.
Yeah. So what we heard was that they are curtailing when they are notified by the National Weather Service, and it takes some time. They kind of went through the challenges with, you can't just immediately shut off. They can issue a command to stop the turbines from producing energy, and they will over the course of probably several minutes, the blades are going to feather, and you're going to see a reduction in speed of the blades turning. They're not going to come to a complete stop. But again, that comes down to when they are notified by the National Weather Service. My reaction, I think some of the other board members are frustrated with this, because we sat through the hearing. Recall back in 2018, their original application was denied, and I think a large part because of the curtailment or the interference with the National Weather Service radar. Part of the second application was they unveiled this curtailment plan that everything was going to be automated. And so that's what I think a lot of the board members have been focusing on is, well, when is this automation going to come? And that's maybe the frustration, is that I don't think the automation, the system, the National Weather Service automatically, electronically notifying their system and no humans being involved. That's kind of how this was explained. And that's really the safest way to operate this, is no place for human error, right? It's all automated. You have humans in the background to monitor and make sure things are operating correctly. But that's how this was explained and approved. But unfortunately, the ordinance language, the condition, didn't get into that level of detail. We kind of took them at their word as this was described during the hearing, and even in a letter that followed the hearing. And what we're seeing is I don't think it'll ever be automated completely. It doesn't sound like they're working towards that. So that's the frustration, I think, on the board side, is we're not getting what was promised or what was described to us, but they're doing the best they can with the technology. I think what we got, it was a disconnect between the folks that were, trying to get the project approved, and then the folks who actually have to operate the wind farm, for the next 30 years. There was a disconnect there, and our expectation was different. But unfortunately, the language in our ordinance and the requirement that they curtail, it's not strong enough to say that they are in violation if they are not being notified by the National Weather Service. And so that's kind of where we stand.
Seems to be a kind of growing trend, in that direction of what we were sold isn't what we're getting.
Yeah. And, I put that's on the board then. We are responsible for the language. We now know that what's said in a hearing, if we're going to have a follow-up condition to attach to an application, we've got to make sure that our language covers everything. We can't just go off of what was said or what was promised. We've got to have a detailed description in our conditions and make sure that they're enforceable. So, I take that as a lesson learned for the county, that, the application explains, what they intend to do. But if we've got requirements that are not clearly defined in our ordinance, and we're going to attach conditions, then we've got to make sure that our language is sufficient to monitor that and make sure it happens going forward.
Now, remind me, were you on RPC ZBA, one of those, when this all started up?
I was not at the time of the applications. No.
Okay. Gotcha. But you were, it sounds like, very dialed in on that process.
Yeah.
Did you foresee this coming? Was that something you saw?
I had concerns with public safety is of utmost importance here. And when you're dealing with something that you need to make minute by minute decisions, when you're talking about tornadoes, we just had tornadoes coming through even DeWitt County the other day, anything that makes the National Weather Service's job more difficult to do their duty in protecting the public, we've got to be extra careful on. And I thought, honestly, they shouldn't even have had turbines in that mitigation zone. It was approved, with language and with an explanation that they were going to curtail. So we thought, some folks thought that this was going to solve the problem. Others had doubts. I just didn't think that we should even risk it, that it's not worth it. You've got plenty of ground out there that they had leased. They didn't need to put, I think it was 19 turbines in the mitigation zone that would directly interfere with the radar in that lowest radar band. So, but it is what it is, right? They were approved. They, we did our best, I guess, at the time to get a condition that would protect us, but there's some gaps there. So no, it is. It's a lesson learned. I think we've just got to be very careful in the language. Yeah.
To be fair to Mr. Seville and his people, I think we should mention, he pointed out, that at first they weren't getting all the warnings and everything from the Weather Service, because I know just in talking with the Weather Service for several years now, their technology has become so advanced that they can issue a warning to a certain part of the county.
Right.
Whereas, let's say, the warning is for southeast DeWitt County. Well, northwest DeWitt County is not going to get that warning all the time. And so I think it's fair to point out they weren't getting all the notifications from the Weather Service. That doesn't excuse everything, but I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah. So this is not at all a critique on, Aaron and his folks. They are operating the wind farm, and they have their technology. They weren't the ones out there promising how everything was going to work. It was talked about how the systems were going to be communicating electronically, notifying the wind farm, and things would automatically happen. Operations then gets the project turned over to them. They build the wind farm. They're stuck with what their systems are capable of handling. And there was it doesn't sound like any automatic communication between the systems. So they're doing the best that they can with what their system limitations are. And you're actually absolutely right. The National Weather Service, they issue a weather event or a weather alert for a portion of the county. They may make the decision that, they don't need to feel like calling an L because it's not on that side of the county. But unfortunately, the condition as written doesn't distinguish between that. So I think, when we talked a little bit last month about it, a new version of the wind ordinance, we tried to deal with some of those issues and clean up, so that it was more clear going forward that there was more protections. If there's a part of the county that's not going to be impacted, then, that could be handled differently, but that doesn't apply retroactively.
And I feel like, from what I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, the way I interpreted what I heard was they recognized that, and they told the Weather Service, hey, anytime a warning is issued, we got to know.
Yeah. Again, they, on the operations side, are doing the best that they can with what their systems are capable of. If they don't have the ability to electronically receive that notification and automatically curtail, they're just doing the best that they can with the manual processes. And they've had, in their defense, yes, they've notified the National Weather Service and said, even though you may not think that it's going to impact the northwest part of DeWitt County, notify us anyway. And so they're doing their best to comply with the ordinance based on the language that we have and with their system capabilities.
I think, again, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think that shows they're willing to be a good community partner. The operations guys, again, I go back to your point of, you were sold a bill of goods you're not getting, but the people that are here with us now, they're doing their best to be a good community partner. Is that fair?
It does no good to beat them up continually over what was, mistakes of the past. I think we all have some accountability, some responsibility for what was approved, and for the language as written. It should have been more clear. Yes, going forward, I think they didn't have to show up Wednesday night, but they did, and they brought folks to answer any questions that we had. And I agree that they are attempting to do the best that they can and manage expectations, right? There's going to be some folks who will not be happy regardless of what they say. And, we've it's not going to change. That's it. We just got to find a way forward. And I think Wednesday night was an attempt for them to do their side, do the best that they can to make sure that we are on the same page moving forward.
One last thing, we'll go to break. We know the state has come in over the top on regulation on all of this. Is any of this within the purview of the county to fix for the next one in the event we get there?
What do you mean?
Curtailment, communication, the electronic piece that you were promised but you didn't get. Is that within the county's purview now that you can fix that for the next?
So I think the state statute, and even the one that was on the docket this last session, did not get approved. It's still limited to siting and decommissioning. Those are the main focuses that the state has been getting into. They have not been looking at an operational set of requirements. So I think the county still has the ability to implement and add conditions that deal with the operation of the wind farm over the 30-year period.
Is that something you're working on?
It's something that we did. We approved last month. We have updated the wind ordinance,
and that was part of it.
And clarifying the curtailment condition was part of that.
Okay,
yes.
Got it. Interesting. Very good. All right, Mr. Witte, let's break here. Come back with some more. DeWitt County Board Chair Joe Witte joins us following up the Wednesday night DeWitt County Board meeting. More to come with him on the morning show.
WHOW. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Ace now offers free assembly and free delivery, so it's never been easier to get a great grill for your family, like a Weber gas grill, a Traeger wood pellet grill, or a Big Green Egg charcoal grill. Only at your neighborhood Ace. Around the block. What you need in stock. With people who know their grills.
This is Brad from Gibson Ace Hardware in Clinton, Illinois. Stop in to see us, The Helpful Place, at 114 North Madison Street, Clinton.
See participating store for details.
Shane here from Highway 51 Exchange, just south of Clinton. Let us service your lawn and garden equipment for spring with our quick turnaround and service specials for free pickup and delivery. Click our icon on DeWittDailyNews.com for details.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police splatter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Now there's one web portal for local agriculture radio programming in Central Illinois. IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Local farm programming streamed live and archived to hear anytime. IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Hear the morning and noon farm shows with local agriculture news and interviews. IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Plus hear all of your favorite agriculture farm shows including RFD Illinois, AgriTalk, RFD Today, and the Closing Market Report. IllinoisFarmRadio.com. It's agriculture grown locally, streamed live, and archived to hear anytime. IllinoisFarmRadio.com. A service of the Miller Media Group.
DeWitt County's #1 source for local news is on the air and online 24 hours a day. The latest local news stories are heard every hour on Central Illinois' news station, the Big 1520 AM and 92.3 FM WHOW. Stream live at DeWittDailyNews.com. They're also heard every hour on the station that's your easy choice, 95.9 FM WEZC. And to read the latest local news on your electronic device, including tablets, iPhones, and smartphones, go to DeWittDailyNews.com. DeWitt County's #1 source for local news is on the air, online, 24 hours a day.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Mr. Joe Witte, DeWitt County Board Chair, follows up the Wednesday night DeWitt County Board meeting with us. Mr. Witte, let's dive into solar. And boy, I'll tell you, the development for solar and the applications are going to be coming fast, it sounds like. What do we know?
Yeah, I think we've had our zoning administrator receiving multiple applications and doing kind of a preliminary review for the applicants just to make sure that everything's in good order. They don't want to start the process with parts of their application incomplete or missing. So she has been working with several applicants doing that preliminary review and letting them know of any deficiencies that they can get corrected. We did find that she shared with us Wednesday night that we have one application that is essentially ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think the check was supposed to be coming in today, which would officially start the county on the 60-day clock, basically, that we are required by statute to start a hearing. So assuming that timeline stays true, we will receive that check today, and we would have to have a decision or have to have a citing application hearing started by, I think, mid to late August. So we did get a date scheduled for the first application that we would have under this new process. And I think we chose August 12th, if my memory serves. We would have the hearing at that time. Very large application. So it would take some time, obviously.
She said binders, right?
Correct. My hope.
I heard that and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a lot to obviously review there. And I honestly don't know. I recall which solar application this would be, where it's for. We've approved several road use agreements, so we know there's several in the queue coming, but this would be a pretty large one, it sounds like. And
binders, that just I cringed at that. That just sounds awful for you guys.
Thankfully we're gonna get them electronically as well.
There you go.
They're a little bit easier to deal with.
And the process is going to look a little different. Everything is going to fall on the board now, right? Why is that?
Part of the statute with that, when it came out a couple of years ago,
from the
state, we looked at things at that time. We know that the 60-day time frame was new. From the time they submit that application and say go, we've got 60 days to start the hearing. Under our SUP process, that has to go through the Regional Planning Commission first. They make a recommendation, then the zoning board has their chance to do the hearing. And just depending on when that application comes in, that 60-day time frame can be awfully tight because everything has to be posted. So this time it will go straight to the board. We will conduct the hearing. It'll be very similar. I envision it being very similar to what the hearing would look like for a zoning application, but it's going to go straight to the board, as you said.
Very good. DeWitt County Board Chair Joe Witte in studio with us. Network news on the way.
WHOW.
In Washington. The clock is ticking on a presidential decision about potential